VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Crosstalk. Vic Eliason, your host today, and we've got some interesting things to talk about. I'm going to ask right at the front that you get a pen and paper to be able to write something down. So if you would right now, take a minute to get this. If you're driving, be careful you're driving and, you don't want to be driving off the road. But if you would, get a pen and paper and to be ready to do some writing of some telephone numbers. Just thought I'd give you a heads up on that. First of all, the Democrats, of course, their push to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, and now it's going to be going before the whole Senate. That's right, the Senate Democrats backing gay marriage have decided now it's time to repeal a federal law defining marriage as the union of a man and a woman. Why is it that issues of this magnitude on moral and literally ethical issues has to be linked to a Democratic or any party? I mean, if it was the Podunk Party, it doesn't matter. Why is it that a party becomes notorious for their position on these moral issues, cultural issues? Why is it that, I don't know. That's why I asked the question. But the Democrats may satisfy the gay marriage supporters, but the bill, well, they say it won't get very far. The repeal was approved by the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday, but the next stop, the full Senate, could be a long way off. The bill's chief sponsor, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, says that she doesn't have the votes for Senate passage, and that the bill would have no chance in the House controlled by the Republicans. So the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Patrick Leahy, actually defended the timing of the panel's vote on the DOMA Act. It is never the wrong time to right an injustice, he said. Now, Feinstein's bill has 31 Senate sponsors, all Democrats. Most Republicans fiercely oppose the repeal. The traditional marriage between a man and a woman has been the foundation of our society for 6,000 years, says Senator Grassley, the ranking Republican on the Judiciary panel. The Defense of Marriage Act protects this sacred institution, which I believe in, he says, and attempts to dismantle this law as likely to be met with a great deal of resistance. Well, folks, if you'd like to let your voice be heard, this is the first number I'm going to give you. It's dealing with DOMA. Now, bear in mind, the committee is passed it, but it's got to go before the whole Senate, okay? So if you write this phone number down, this is the switchboard to the United States Senate. And you may not know who your senator is, but if you call this number, you just tell them where you live. I'm Joe Schmo, and I live in Podunk, and tell them where it is. They will know exactly who your senator is, and they will connect you with his or her office. Got it? Okay, so here's the phone number to reach the Senate switchboard. It's 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. And what I hear some people saying that they're going to call and say, look, do not repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. You see, this effort by Feinstein is to destroy a bill that recognizes the legitimacy of marriage. And so your opportunity to let your senators know, and I hope thousands of you will call, at least make one phone call and add it to the list. Okay? Now, that's important. I think it's important. Now, according to what I understand, the bill has 31 Senate sponsors. But there's things that could happen when the input of the American people becomes very, very much at large. Okay. Now we're going to start on the main discussion thing today. It was April of 2008. I was sitting in this studio, and I had gotten a news clip from a little town in Wisconsin called Reedsburg. It was the Pineview Elementary School in Reedsburg. It was coming up on Halloween, or let's see, it was April 28th? I thought it was, no, I guess it was just kind of doing something crazy. It was Crazy Days, yeah. And they had made a requirement that all the little children had to come dressed in reverse gender. In other words, all the boys had to wear dresses, and all the girls had to wear breeches and look like a man. Now, there was no other option. You couldn't come dressed like an Indian chief or like the Lone Ranger or whatever. You couldn't come dressed like some Muppet or anything like that. No, it had to be reverse gender dressing. And I perhaps waxed a bit eloquent on this issue. And I said it was outrageous, and I think it is. And I gave out the phone number of the Pineview Elementary School simply for people in the region who listen to our signal. Right there, Reedsburg is right under the influence of our major station, WVCX. And I mentioned this on the air, and I said, if you have some comments on this, why don't you call their principal, who's a fine man? This is not criticizing him as a person. Well, it went viral. I mean, it did. That was, I think, near the end of the week. For some reason, I was driving through. I totally forgot it. And I drove through Reedsburg on Sunday and stopped at a Quick Trip to get some gas and went in and looked at the local newspaper, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Here it was. Parents rejecting this activity of cross-dressing the kids. And they quoted some things we'd said on the air and referred to us as a radio host or something that objected or whatever. But it was the headlines of the Reedsburg newspaper. I couldn't believe it. I invested and bought a copy of the newspaper. Jumped in the car, came back, and of course that was Sunday. Now Monday, I came into the office, and shortly thereafter, Jim Schneider, our co-host here, came downstairs and said, Vic, this thing has gone viral. It's now in the international press. And it was showing up in press all over the country. Well, the next thing I know, I get a phone call from Neil Cavuto from Fox Business and said, would you appear on my program in the afternoon? I said, what in the world is this all about? It was about that comment because the parents of Wisconsin had raised their voices. And you know something? The principal listened. He's a man of good character, a man who is willing to listen to the parents. And he said, never again will we ever do this in our school. He recognized the hazards. Well, we got on the air. I had a quote this. A limo came and picked me up here at the office. Boy, was I treated royally. And they took me down to the MATC studios, which had an uplink that tied in with Fox. And I'll never forget, as we went on the air, and Neil had some questions, and he asked a question regarding, what's wrong with this? My answer was basically this. You know, years ago, people dressed up silly and dumb and did funny things. That might have been just kid fun. I didn't use those exact words, but that's what I implied. But I said because of the issue of genderism that has emerged in our country, people crawling out of the closet, identifying as a gender or lack thereof or confused or an opposite gender, whatever it is. And I says imposing this on little kids adds another layer as a little boy comes walking down the sidewalk in a dress. And so I shared my thoughts. Mr. Cavuto was very kind, and we probably talked three minutes, and that was it. I got a limo ride back to the office. But that was in 2008. Beginning today, November 10, hang on to your hats, the Girl Scouts is holding its 52nd annual convention in Houston, Texas. And it is the kickoff to the 100-year anniversary on March 12, 2012. Now, what I've got to share with you is very interesting because Here's a release from WorldNet Daily, but Fox News has got it as well. Jane Chastain wrote this: the Girl Scouts USA will hold its 52nd annual convention in Houston. It is to be the kickoff of the 100th year anniversary on March 12, 2012. And the Girl Scouts are inviting everyone who has ever been a member of the organization to join the celebration. There's a time when I bled green and gold, she says, but I will not be joining this party. The Girl Scouts have strayed from the ideals of the founder, Juliette Gordon Low. Her scouts pledged to do their duty to, quote, God and my country, unquote, to help other people at all times and to, quote, obey the Girl Scout laws, unquote. Now, the laws encouraged young girls to uphold the highest moral standards. The original, quote, a Girl Scout keeps herself pure, unquote, was expanded to read, a Girl Scout is clean in thought and word and deed, unquote. Now, today's Girl Scouts have put an asterisk by the word God, making the great I am optional. Although local troops can pray to a creator if they choose, most don't. It's seen as so last century. Gone, too, are the moral absolutes recorded in God's Word. And today, the scouting experience largely depends on area council and local troop leaders, and some are quite conservative. But these troops swim upstream against the national organization and have no say in the matters of policy. The beginning of the end of Juliet's brand of scouting came in 1970, when feminist icon Betty Friedan was put on National Governing Board of Girl Scouts. Now it's controlled by left-wing ideologues. In 1980, the organizations changed its policy on homosexuality and welcomed lesbians as scouts and troop leaders, and today it virtually anything goes. In fact, you no longer even have to be a girl to be a Girl Scout. Yeah, that's right. One only needs to, quote, identify as a girl, unquote, to be accepted. In the 1997 book, On My Honor, Lesbians Reflect on their scouting experience, an administrator of the organization estimated that 30% of the professional staff of Girl Scouts USA were lesbians. Girl Scouts USA policy states that it does not permit an advocacy or promotion of personal lifestyle or sexual preference. One can examine the list of entertainers, speakers, role models, and who will be presented at Houston to see that it is dominated by gay rights, pro-abortion advocates, and left-wing ideologues. Many have more than casual connection to the nation's largest abortion provider, known as, you guessed it, Planned Parenthood. We'll be back in just a moment to talk about this. Keep your pen handy. We shall return.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what's the latest dinosaur find?
Chris, I don't know about the latest, but a recent one was found in Antarctica. Fragments of the dinosaur's upper jaw and teeth and most of the bones of the lower leg were unearthed. It was found near the summit of Mount Kilpatrick, but it was found in sedimentary rock laid down by seawater. Now, Chris, this animal did not live in the cold, nor did it live on top of a mountain. As with most fossils, it was deposited catastrophically in water-based sediments, I think by the great flood of Noah's day. Dinosaurs were created on days 5 and 6 of Creation Week, and most of them died in the flood. The fossils we find are animals that died in the flood. Finding them in Antarctica, where reptiles couldn't live today, reinforces that back to Genesis truth.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. For more information, you can find us on the web at www.icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk as we're talking about the Girl Scouts of America. And we're not trying to be unkind. We're just being factual. And if the facts aren't kind, it's not our fault, okay? We were talking about the headliners, the people that are going to be speaking at this humongous convention of the Girl Scouts starting today. It's actually November 10 through 13. The headliner, in fact, probably one of the keynote speakers, is ABC left-wing journalist Katie Couric, who often uses her position to salute her liberal heroes and bash conservatives. There's a singer, Sarah Bareilles, who built her career performing and speaking at homosexual events. She'll be entertaining the crowd. She has appeared in a gay film and is the darling of the Obama White House, would you believe? Houston's homosexual mayor, Anise Parker, and Rice University sociologist Stephen Kleinberg, a prominent researcher on LGBT acceptance, they're speakers, and others include Jody Winterhoff, formerly Hillary Clinton's campaign strategist and a vice president of the relief organization called CARE, C-A-R-E, a leading international abortion advocate. Feminist leader and Democratic Party activist Swanee Hunt, in her over-the-top article, Gagged and Bound, for Scripps Howard News Service, she bashed President G.W. Bush for signing a bill that banned the grisly partial birth abortion. And she was criticizing the president because he signed it. C.J. Golden, who works with the Girl Scout councils around the country to combine Taoism with modern-day defiance. Her website, taogirls.com, provides links to Girl Zone and Teen Wire. These are Planned Parenthood's explicit websites for teens. Now, this is just a small sample. You can find a list of the controversial speakers at Speak Now Girls Scouts. So it's Speak, N-O-W-G-I-R-L, Scouts. Speak Now Girl Scouts, all run together.com. You'll have the full list of those who will be influencing and teaching the Girl Scouts from across America. Now, you can find that list and their bios on the Girl Scout USA official site. Now, be advised, an important part of this year's program is something called Conversations of Consequence, such as moving beyond diversity to inclusion. See, that was the big buzzword, even in schools. Diversity. I remember being up in Toma one night at this as a school board met, and diversity was the big thing. And they were talking about going to a convention paid for by taxpayers' dollars, where they were being taught how to bring diversity into the Toma School District. I'm not sure where that thing all went, but it was certainly a point of concern for many. But the big question, moving beyond diversity to inclusion, does that kind of sound like a strategy move? Now, gay rights activist Marlee Matlin is reported to be speaking on philanthropy. Yeah, I ate too many hamburgers today. Speaking on philanthropy, in one of those conversations, Matlin is the deaf actress who starred in the HBO series called The L Word. L, obviously, standing for lesbian. Well, the Girl Scouts USA puts on a public face and manages to snag a few Christian individuals and religious groups who are either ignorant of its agenda or its denial, and however Christians have fled and exodus continues. Clearly, the Girl Scouts' 100-year journey took a sharp left turn in 1970, and according to the writer of this article, is now headed downhill at a rapid pace. Written by Jane Chastain with WorldNet Daily. Well, that's the story, folks. I mean, Girl Scouts of America? And in Houston? I did some checking today because, newspapers, of course, they love controversy. And in a few minutes, I'm going to give you the phone numbers of the Houston Chronicle, which is a major newspaper. And there are about 4 different numbers I'm going to give you. One of them is the news department, another one switchboard numbers. And if you have had a high regard for the Girl Scouts, but you're concerned about the direction they're going, if the Houston Chronicle gets 5,000 phone calls today, they might find it was a newsworthy story. I don't know. That's entirely up to them. But this is not just phone calls, folks. This is the expression of concern from American people. Now, get this. These are 100 questions for the Girl Scouts. These are questions that the organization, which is celebrating its anniversary, and these are questions they would be asking the girls in the Girl Scouts. These are sample questions for Girl Scouts of the USA. Now, I'm going to read these questions, and you tell me if they're loaded or if they're begging the question. Here you go. Question number 1. Why did Girl Scouts USA co-found, and why do they continue to maintain membership in and give millions of dollars to the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts? That's the WAGs. And when the WAGs aggressively promote abortion and comprehensive sexual education, trains girls to talk about sex, and partners with radical pro-abortion organizations like International Planned Parenthood. That's question 1. Question number 2. Are parents aware that one of the badge requirements of the Girl Scouts official website sends girls to do research on the website of the Radical Feminist Global Fund for Women, an organization that funds controversial groups like a lesbian feminist tornado or women sex workers of Argentina and other groups? Research on this stuff? The Global Fund for Women was co-founded by Frances Kissling, who led the aggressively pro-abortion Catholics for Choice organization for many years. And then there's Charlotte Bunch, one of the most radical feminists in the world, serving on the GFW board. And in the 70s, Charlotte authored those disturbing documents stating that all feminists must be lesbians. Now, that's just the second question. Oh, there's more. Why did Girl Scouts of USA hire as their media relations spokesman a person who signs press releases for their campaign to portray women and girls positively in the media, an individual who has been featured singing in a music video that portrays a woman being strangled, featured in another video, supposedly, well, I'm not even going to read this because it's offensive, but conducting a sexual act in a pile of newspapers while the camera moves back and forth. And the band who plays songs like Sick Days are for sex. Folks, I realize this is blunt, but these are the questions that Girl Scouts of America need to answer. Because, well, and it goes on. Why, in the official statements of policy of Girl Scouts, does the Girl Scout headquarters continue to mislead the public by reportedly insisting that they do not partner with or have a relationship with Planned Parenthood without clearly disclosing the relationship many of the councils have had or currently have with Planned Parenthood? But you find out that that is not accurate. Oh, it goes on. There's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different questions that could be asked, which expose the falsehoods that are being portrayed regarding the position on moral issues by the Girl Scouts of America. The organization that at one time had a slogan, well, a Girl Scout is clean in thought, word, and deed. For God and country, and at all times to obey the Girl Scout laws. A Girl Scout keeps herself pure. And today we've got this kind of, in my opinion, corrupt leadership that has come forth to teach the young women of our country this kind of morality. Now, folks, I'm coming up on the end of my tirade, okay? But I am going to give you, if you take your pen and paper now, you see, if you call Girl Scouts, you'll become a statistic and go into a file cabinet. But I've found that many times when conventions are going on, that there are newspapers that are very anxious to hear what people have to say. Not that we're trying to generate controversy. No, I think that Girl Scouts have generated the controversy. But, of course, newspapers love to publish controversy. And if there is controversy on the issues of the stand, who would be better qualified to let the public know than the Houston Chronicle? So I'm going to say, first of all, be kind, be courteous. No irrational noise-making. They're just a newspaper. But if you call, I'm going to give you a special number that you can call and tell them. When I call them, I'm going to say, I am outraged of what's going on in Houston today. And they'll probably say, well, why? I said, because of what's happened in the Girl Scouts and what they're endorsing and the homosexual influence that's gone into the Girl Scouts of America and those who they've chosen to be the icons of example in their convention. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Now, you say what you want to. But the Houston Chronicle newsroom, this is direct into the newsroom. And I would urge, if you don't get through, take and call later and call later. And even after this show is off the air, go ahead and call. And then call tomorrow, because the convention is still going on. And I remember, I've been in cities where there have been conventions and controversial issues, and most of the newspapers will publish the full story. And if they got 5,000 phone calls today of people across the United States who are deeply concerned about what is happening with the Girl Scouts. This had been a wholesome group of little girls taught to live purely and honorably. Now where's it going? Okay, you got your pen ready? Here is the phone number for the Houston Chronicle newsroom. 1-713, that's the area code, 362-7491. That's the Houston Chronicle newsroom. It's 713-362-7491. Now, granted, there may be many calls beginning in about 10 seconds from now. But here are 3 more numbers where you can leave messages, and I'd suggest calling all of them and leave your message at every switchboard, because the Houston Chronicle appears that they have 3 switchboards. Here's the number for the Houston Chronicle switchboards: 713-362-7171. Do not harass. Don't be unkind. Just share your views. That's area code 713-362-7171. There's another one, 800-735-3800. 735-3800. And the last, 713-220-7171. We'll be right back after the break, and we'd like to hear your heartbeat on this issue. This is Crosstalk.
For millions of Christians around the world, following Christ can be painful, even deadly. Yet the church continues to thrive in the most difficult places. What can we learn from these oppressed believers? How do they pray for those in authority? What is their attitude toward government and political power? What does worship mean to them? Where do they find their strength and joy? These and other questions are addressed in the book, The Privilege of Persecution. Drawing on real-life stories and key scriptures, authors Carl Moeller of Open Doors and Pastor David Hegg present a surprising reality. The faith of the suffering church is vibrant. There are some remarkable lessons the Western Church can learn from the suffering church. The Privilege of Persecution is available for a donation of $16 to VCY America, which can be made by calling 1-800-729-9829. Ask for the book, The Privilege of Persecution. Again, that number, toll-free, is 1-800-729-9829.
Well, we'd like to find out what you think about this thing, and we're going to take a moment here. Randy Melchert is with me today, and he's got his droid telephone thing, which has got more brains than anybody. I mean, that phone, you can find out anything you want to know. But we even found out where the committee was going to be held, or where this thing is being held at the Brown Convention Center, George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston. But Randy, there's government support for the Girl Scouts. You had some evidence there.
That is correct. On October 29th of 2009, President Barack Obama signed the Girl Scouts of the USA Commemorative Coin Act, authorizing the minting of 350,000 silver dollar coins in honor of the Girl Scouts. And as part of the legislation, $10 from the sale of each coin goes to the Girl Scouts of the USA.
So they're getting funding from high up. And folks, this is something, well, we'd like your feedback. Our telephone lines are now open. And your thoughts, even let us know how well you received. The Houston Chronicle may be taking your calls. Our phone number here is 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. That's our phone number here. And I see things, every time we give out a major phone project here, we find that the phones ring a lot slower here because people are busy. But as you are listening today, give us a call. Your feedback. We're going to go right now to Monroe, Wisconsin, talk with Kathy. And Kathy, what do you think?
Hi, I think it's awful. I mean, I used to belong to the Brownies and the Girl Scouts, and we took the original oath. I didn't realize just how far away from that standard that they had gotten. And here my neighbor was selling Girl Scout cookies, and I bought a box. Now I feel like, I want to cancel my order. That we shouldn't even be patronizing the Girl Scouts for buying their stuff.
Well, many years ago, we rented the YWCA auditorium here in Milwaukee, and that's Young Women's Christian Association, and we rented that until we outgrew it. But I remember when we came to rent it, and the name of our organization then was YFC, standing for Youth for Christ. And so I talked to the executive director, and she said, well, what does YFC stand for? I said, it stands for Youth for Christ. And I looked up over her desk, and there was a big banner, and it had that verse from the Bible, I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. What a thrill to hear the Lord, right there behind her desk.
Well, I can remember the oath. We raised our hands and said, "I promise to do my duty to love God and my country, to do, to love others, and especially people at home, and and
sure,
and to show the love of Christ." I mean, that was central. And if people that wanted to join, if they didn't believe that, well, they just don't join. I mean, let them go to some other organization and start up their own group. But why is it that they got to, bombard or take over? What was started, for to be
and using it for a moral agenda. Kathy, appreciate the call from Monroe. The rest of my story there was that I looked up at that big banner behind this desk, and I said, "We believe just like what that says up there." She looked up at that and she said, "Oh, well, we haven't used that for years and years and years." Well, that was the YWCA. Well, that was back in the early 70s. No, it was the late 60s. Well, that building is no longer there anymore. It's a parking lot. But it was interesting how that organizations that start with a wonderful foundation can go down the tubes very quickly when the leadership goes down the tubes as well. Let's go to Delavan, Wisconsin, and talk to Jake. And Jake, you're on the air.
Yes.
You're on.
Just a little feedback. I think this whole thing of you see more and more embracing of homosexual lifestyles. I think it's the whole PC thing gone just horribly wrong. I mean, it's the same thing. You see the same thing with religions and religious extremists. When people talked about 9/11, it was U.S.'s fault for being a horrible country. It's okay. It's their perspective. Things get spun to where everything, as long as it's someone's perspective, as long as someone believes it, it's okay. And I think that's, unfortunately, that's going to be the downfall of our country.
Well, Jeffrey Dahmer believed some things too, and he left a trail of carnage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. Good word there. Thank you for calling from Delavan, Jake. And we're going to go right now to Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and talk with Jerry, and hopefully get some you folk out of state here. I see Charlotte, Florida coming up, Port Charlotte, that is. And let's go to Jerry in Oak Creek. Jerry, you're on the air.
Yeah, Vic, this is taking insanity to a whole new level. For God's sakes, what happened to the Christian people that were that started the Girl Scouts? How did they allow this to get out of hand? They need to. You know how the AARP went totally left, and there's another group that started now that combats the AARP. That there needs to be a whole new group of Girl Scouts starting up again, getting back to its traditional values, and allowing the Girl Scouts to be the Girl Scouts that they originally started out as. And is there any conservative speakers in that list that you mentioned?
You can go to their website and see them all, but let me tell you, it's a who's who of liberal stuff.
So
and you got
pretty
people
much all liberals, huh?
Oh yeah, and with a keynote speaker like Katie Couric, what would you expect?
Oh, well, that's when you it's like, what do you expect? Satan and his gang of bandits, the liberals. It's like, what do you expect? I mean, it's like, I'm not surprised by this, because you expect it, because the Bible talks about in the end times, everything that's right side up will be upside down, and this is just documented proof of it. Has this happened to the Boy Scouts, by the way?
Oh, listen, there's been stuff, the Boy Scouts have been facing some of that junk too. And the issue, see, the whole goal of these groups is to penetrate the culture of young people, and so change the culture. I read some years ago, I don't have it in front of me, but I read an essay that came from, in fact, I think it's recorded in the Library of Congress, but that essay it was something that was the most diabolical thing to read, where they had made statements that they would sodomize our young people in the colleges and in the universities and in religious institutions and whatever. And this was the goal of the people of this mindset. And so it's no question that there's an agenda, and we certainly need to be sensitive. Jerry, thanks so much for calling from Oak Creek, Wisconsin. We're going to go to Port Charlotte, Florida right now and talk with Kaya. And Kaya, you're on the air. Hello, Kaya.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kaya. I'm just calling because I have 3 daughters, and it really bothers me to know that they are letting lesbians be leaders, because that kind of scares me to think that, because why would they be in that position? It makes me think that those girls would not be safe, that they'd be getting influenced to become lesbians as they get older. I mean, children shouldn't even be thinking about those things. So it's like they're putting these thoughts into their heads at a young age.
Well, there was a book in 1997. It was entitled this. Now, this is the title. On My Honor, Lesbians Reflect on Their Scouting Experiences. And the administrator of the organization estimated that 30% of the professional staff were lesbians. That's scary, scary stuff.
That's exactly right. I see 20 years from now, they're going to see the repercussions of what they're doing now. And I think it's very bad how they're deceiving people who are starting out to be Girl Scouts right now, because they don't, without you telling me this, I would not have known that this is going on in the Girl Scouts.
Well,
I probably would have thought of putting my daughters in Girl Scouts.
Well, this is
not fathom to put them into it.
Well, this is why we're asking hundreds, if not several thousand people to call the Houston Chronicle today. And see, you can call the Girl Scouts and they say, okay, I hear you. But you see, the newspaper will publish, hopefully, both sides. And if you people out there will pick up the phone and do the calling of those numbers I gave you, I hope there will be literally that their switchboards will receive hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. And
well, I got off the phone with them before I called you guys. I did call them, and he said he didn't know what I was speaking about.
Well, tell him to go. Tell him to go to the George R. Brown Convention Center in his town. Where the Girl Scouts are having call them. When you call folks, tell them you're talking about the Girl Scout convention in his own town.
I think us as mothers and parents need to stand up against what's going on, because this is our future, this is our generation. And if we don't protect our children as Christians, then who's going to protect them?
Thank you so much, Kaya. From Port Charlotte, Florida, we go to Joplin, Missouri. And Joplin, how are you, Sheila?
Hi. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I lived in California. At the time, there was a case within the Cub Scouts about the boys that were members, they were upset because they had to mention God in their pledge. Mm-hmm. At that point, I thought to myself, where are we headed now? I'm actually very surprised that it took the Girl Scouts to get for it to be this long before anything crazy happened. I think it's just, if they're not indoctrinating our kids in one way, they're doing it in another. And I think that tolerance is the biggest problem. Tolerance has gotten us in trouble with terrorism. It's gotten us in trouble in so many ways. I think that tolerance is a really bad thing in so many ways. Our bodies are made with a defense mechanism that becomes very intolerant toward infectious disease and whatever. God built us that way. But the issue of not tolerating things that are wicked and wrong and corruptive and corrosive, what's happened to Christians who cannot discern when things like this are going on? One other thing here, Sheila, is that in the Girl Scout movement now, that if you are a boy, but you kind of feel like a girl, at least you feel like a girl this week, you can join the Girl Scouts and be a girl. And I think that is so wrong. I mean, it's not natural. We were not made that way.
Well, some of these people must have been
our children's brains.
Some of these people who have come up with this must have been dropped on their head when they were young.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sheila. You. Okay, let's move along to Port Huron, Michigan, and Barbara. Barbara, you're on the air.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, my name's Barb.
Yes, Barb.
And I was very into Girl Scouts during the years before 2000 when my daughter graduated. I was with her leader from kindergarten through senior and high school and beyond until, this vote came up and they were going to take God, God, capital G, out of it. And I said if they ever did that, I'd be out the door.
Sure.
Well, I stayed with them for a few years and taught some of their other programs in the schools. But as an evangelical Christian, I always wanted to bring God into it. Of course, was denied the right to do that. When I read one of Corrie ten Boom's books, she talked about before the Girl Scouting movement in the United States, she tried to get a group going in Europe, and she was denied. And she said, what good is it when we can teach our girls to be good citizens, but not to honor our God?
Mm. Thank you very much, Barbara, for sharing that with us. We're going to move right along here. We've got so many calls just pouring in here from everywhere. I hope you're calling those numbers. I'm going to give them to you one more time when we come back. And I hope you'll call the Houston Chronicle and let them know that the people of America are outraged. Let it be heard. Be normal. Be decent when you talk. But let them know there's reason for your concern. When we come back, we also have an alternative. If people don't want the Girl Scouts, which isn't a high question now, we have another organization that sounds pretty good. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Some, quote, Christian, end quote, authors are encouraging you to enter the silence, go into a trance, and encounter Jesus, have a physical confrontation with him. Do we see in the scriptures where Christians are to indeed encounter Jesus physically, now, in the flesh? No. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 8, we see, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing. We also see in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 through 8, so we are always confident knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. We see in Philippians 1, 22 through 24, Paul again says, but if I live on in the flesh, this will mean fruit for my labor. Yet what I shall choose I cannot tell, for I am hard pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to remain in the flesh is more needful for you. Nowhere in the scriptures do we see that in the flesh we physically encounter Jesus. In fact, I believe they're encountering demons.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where the lines are sizzling here. Our telephone number, 800-733-9829, if you want to call with your comments here. But I hope that you're taking the time to call the Houston Chronicle, one of the major newspapers in the area, and let them know what the people of America think about where the Girl Scouts are going. Now, we had a caller here, I think it's Bobby, calling in from Orangeburg, South Carolina. Bobby, are you there?
Yes, Vic.
Bobby, I've got an alternative organization. I think that's what you were going to talk about.
Yeah, the American Heritage Girls.
That's it. I've got it right in front of me. And
I have found out that the Boy Scouts of America has started to pour a lot of support to this group. And in fact, they have even, I think the last time they allowed the American Heritage Girls to observe their annual BSA Jamborees.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I see coming from the memorandums they've signed in the past few years, if there is no American Heritage Girls chapter and you have a Boy Scouts of America chapter, you can call the BSA chapter to get them to help start out an AHG chapter.
And they can go to www.ahgonline.org. www.ahgonline.org. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate the comment. I'm going to give you right now just their oath, they call it, or their commitment. It says, I promise to love God, cherish my family, honor my country, and serve in my community. And the AHG mission is building women of integrity through the service to God, family, community, and country. And the vision of AHG, the American Heritage Girls, is the premier national character development organization for young women that embrace Christian values and encourages family involvement. Sound interesting? Certainly does. Don't know that much about them, but it's certainly something you can look into. Their webpage or their point of contact is www.ahgonline.org. Check it out. We're going to go back to the phone lines right now. And, Bobby, thank you for calling in from South Carolina. We're going to move right now to West Allis, Wisconsin, and talking to Beth. Beth, how are you?
Fine, Vic. I just want to mention, 6 or 7 years ago, I heard about this intrusion to the Girl Scouts with the lesbian influence. And I called Washington at that time because I was concerned about subsidizing that particular, facet of the charities. And I stopped, getting the cookies then because it was just an abomination to me. But one thing you have to understand, they're recruiting in these organizations. It's not a matter of they're just influencing or they're just promoting their freedom to be who they are. They're recruiting. That's their job. That's what they're doing. And the woman that called before and said she didn't know anything about this, well, like I said, I heard this 6-7 years ago. It was on the main media. I advise any parent who's suggesting, to go to any kind of organization for their children, whether it be Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, or any YMCA, a YWCA, which is really taken a bad turn there, too. They really need to do some investigations to whom they partner with.
Absolutely, and that's good counsel. And especially now that the Girl Scouts are allowing transgender boys to join the Brownie Scouts. This is unbelievable. If a kid, 7 years old, in fact, we heard about a story here just in recent hours about a family that is raising a little boy, but they will not, it's not a boy to them, it's a child. And they will not allow people to put the boy, or let's put it this way, the creature, into any category of gender, because they feel that the child will come to determine himself or herself or whatever, itself, I guess, would determine what they are when they want to.
Well, Jesus said there'd be days like this, and let me tell you, they're coming, and they're coming fast. Thank
you so much. Appreciate that. Well, folks, I have just enough time to give you those phone numbers, and I hope there would be, with 95 radio stations, there could be thousands of people that will pick up the challenge and let the people at the Houston Chronicles know what the people of America think. And you know that if enough people call, they're going to publish an article, and that article will speak to hundreds of thousands of more people out there. So may I suggest this is something that we can do, and I've got to make sure I got those telephone numbers here because I've been busy shuffling papers around. But the numbers that we're talking about are very, very important, and here they are. The Houston Chronicle. Now, that's the major Houston newspaper. The Newsroom. If you want to call and let them know how you feel, and if they don't know what you're talking about, tell them, hey, there's a convention in your town. It's going to go for 3 days. It's in the Brown Convention Center, and it's the Girl Scouts of America. Okay? Now, the Houston Chronicle Newsroom is this, 713-362-7491. That's 713-362-7491. Write it down, and even after the show is over, call, let your voice be heard. Also, if you're finding that busy or you want to get in a word in another section of the Chronicle, it might be another news department, here it is, 713-362-7171. Tell them you want to leave a comment regarding the Girl Scouts, and they'll route you to somebody. There's an 800 number, 800-735-3800. You can call there. Houston Chronicles will answer. Be courteous, be kind. Tell them you'd like to make a comment. Leave a story regarding the Girl Scouts. Then there's the last number, 713-220-7171, and place your call. Be courteous, be kind. Act like a Christian American, but don't hesitate to be firm. You see, that's an important ingredient, too. The Bible says to abhor that which is evil and to cleave to that which is good. I think one of the problems, even within our Christian culture, is that we're not hearkening to those words. We're not abhorring evil and sometimes not cleaving to that which is good. We're cleaving to stuff that isn't so good. And so we would urge you to take some steps today to make a difference. And if you call the Houston Chronicles, I'll guarantee you they'll probably run a story that's got big headlines. And because the people of America have spoken regarding what you see happening in the Girl Scouts of America. It had been a noble organization at one time, to some degree. Things have drifted to the place causing concern all across America. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk. Don't forget to call. Put those numbers on your refrigerator so you can call tomorrow and call the next day. Let them know what you think. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.